My name is Lisa and this is Freedom Grows. This is not your typical garden video. I am out of town at the moment, but this is definitely a relevant video. I'm still utilizing plants, but in a different way. I want to talk about how I dye my hair with plants. Now, I've been dyeing my hair with henna and indigo for the past I would say more than 2 years. And I've experimented with that combination of henna and then indigo many different ways over the past few years. Now I want to talk about what's the easiest process for me in case you're also interested in dyeing your hair a darker brown or even black almost, or even covering grays. Now I primarily started with henna not only because I prefer to apply something a little more natural to my hair when it comes to dyeing it, but also because I have a lot of gray hair. Now, my father had a full head of gray hair in his late 20s or when he was in college, and so I think it's hereditary for me. I do embrace gray hair. I think it's beautiful on a lot of women and men. However, just for me, I'm not ready for a full head of gray hair just yet. So I do utilize the henna and the indigo. Now, it's a two-step process for a reason. And that's because if you dye your hair just with henna, you're going to end up with a very coppery look, which is still beautiful, but it's not my natural hair color. Now, if you apply indigo after you dye your hair with henna, then the indigo will stain the henna and make it more of a neutral, darker brown or even black color. And I will say that if you already apply protein to your hair, which I don't apply anything to my hair, but I do know some people apply protein treatments to their hair. If you are going to start using henna, I would say maybe hold off on the protein treatments because henna already has a lot of protein. So if you're overdoing it with the protein, then your hair will end up dry. Otherwise, you should be good to go. Now let's talk about my easy process. What you're seeing me do here is you're seeing me mix the henna first. So you'll want to get a hold of a really good quality henna and indigo powder, and you'll first want to start with the process of mixing the henna. Now this henna is going to generally be mixed with warm water, and you're going to follow the instructions on the back of the packet on how much water to powder. Some powders absorb more than others, but really it's not an exact science. You just want a consistency like a cake batter. Now there are so many different ways that you can do this. I used to mix my henna powder with coffee, like brewed coffee, and I found over trial and error that it's not even necessary. So now I just go straight to the point and mix it with warm water. And what you'll want to do from here is cover it with saran wrap or plastic wrap. Make sure that it's not exposed to any air so that it doesn't dry out, and you're gonna let this sit. Now, you'll see if you start researching a lot of information out there on how long you should leave the henna sitting in this water mixture, and you'll see something like 6 hours, 8 hours. The longer you have it sitting like this, the more dye it releases and the less time you need to have it sitting in your hair. So this is not like a really quick process. You'll definitely want to do this ahead of time, plan ahead of time. So if you're planning on dyeing your hair tomorrow, you'll want to definitely start mixing that henna today, because you want it to sit at least 8 to 12 hours ideally, so that it can start releasing its dye. If not, you're just going to apply it to your hair, and you'll probably have to have it sit in your hair for 5 to 8 hours in order for it to be effective, and that's not ideal. So let it release its dye first before you apply it to your hair. That way you don't have to have it sitting in your hair for so long. So what I'll do now is apply it to my hair. Sometimes I just do the roots, and other times I'll do the full head of hair. This time I'm just doing my roots because that's all that's really needed. I've noticed that I have not had to dye the full head of hair, especially since my hair is really, really long. But the color hasn't really faded for me, and maybe it's because I've applied it so many times to my full head of hair that it has kind of just faded beautifully into my natural hair, and the grays have not appeared in the longer sections of my hair, just my roots obviously with the new growth. So what I'm doing now is applying saran wrap to my hair so that it doesn't dry out and it stays warm, and then covering it with a shower cap. And what I've done is I've left this in my hair for 2 hours. That's it, just 2 hours. Now for conventional dyes, you might think, oh my God, that's such a long time, but not for henna. People have actually sat with the henna in their hair overnight. They feel like it's necessary for way more hours than 2, but trust me, all of the experiments that I've tried, 2 hours is enough, especially if you're letting the dye sit overnight or at least for 12 hours prior to applying it to your hair. Now, the way I removed this was to just rinse my hair with water. And I know it doesn't sound the greatest to not use shampoo and conditioner, but henna does still have the vitamins and minerals and nutrients in it, so your hair won't feel super hard without the shampoo and conditioner. This process is necessary. You don't want to use shampoo or conditioner right now in your hair. You're going to strip the color too quickly. So just rinse it out with warm water until you feel like it's completely out of your hair. From here, I'm gonna let my hair air dry as much as possible. So I'll towel dry it a little bit and then I'm gonna air dry it. In my case, I actually rinsed this out at night. So I just went to bed and then the next day I applied the indigo. And now you'll see what I'm talking about with the copper. If you just dye your hair with henna, this is the result. You're going to have a coppery look, which again is still beautiful, but it doesn't match the rest of my hair. Now this next step is necessary in order to get the hair darker, and that is now mixing the indigo. Now you might be thinking, before I even start talking about indigo, why don't I just skip the henna and go straight to the indigo if my ultimate goal is to dye my hair dark brown? And that is because indigo will not dye your hair. Indigo will dye henna though. So henna needs to be applied to your hair first in order for the indigo to dye the henna on your hair, if that makes any sense. So what I'm doing is mixing the indigo, and indigo does not need to sit overnight or for hours. It literally just needs to be mixed, wait about 15 minutes, and the dye has been released and you're good to go. Now, once I have the indigo all mixed up, I'm going to now apply it to the same areas in my hair that I did the henna the day prior. And now this one is going to sit for 2 hours as well. I've experimented with longer times, but it's definitely not necessary. So now put saran wrap on my head so that it doesn't dry out. And then I'm going to cover it with a shower cap. And once the process is done, you can actually see the hair here. It has gotten a lot darker. You can just tell from when I first applied this indigo to now, which is 2 hours later, it is definitely darker. So I'm going to now rinse this out again with warm water. And then I am going to use a little bit of conditioner on the rest of my hair, not on my roots. So I'm not going to use shampoo. Again, that will most likely strip. Even though I use a natural shampoo, it doesn't matter. It may still strip the color. So to avoid that, you just want to add a little bit of conditioner to the rest of your hair. That way it'll make it a little bit easier for you to brush your hair when you get out of the shower. And now I'm going to just let my hair air dry. And this is the final result. I find it beautiful. My hair is soft. The grays are covered. Now, what I will say right now might not be ideal, but you don't want to wash your hair for at least 2 days after you've done this process. Don't wash the hair because the henna will continue oxidizing and continue getting a little bit deeper in color. And so what you're seeing initially is not going to be the final result. It's going to continue to oxidize for a couple of days, and the true final color will be seen at around day 2 or day 3. And what you're seeing live right here is after about 3 shampoos and conditioners. Now, I know this video was straight to the point, so you may still want to do your research prior to dyeing your hair with henna and indigo, but I did want to share my process with you. I know that when I initially started this process, there was good information out there, but not too much when it came to dyeing the hair with both henna and indigo. So if you found the video helpful and you liked the video and are still here, I just want to thank you for being here. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to watch future content like this.